So, do you want to elevate your presentation skills? You can do that presenting workflows or providing instructions in English using passive voice. And this is today's lesson. Hang in there. We're going to go over that in a very simplified manner so that you can understand it and use it. Let's start with some examples. The marketing team launched the campaign yesterday. That would be the active voice. Now the passive voice would be the campaign was launched yesterday. Which one do you think sounds more sophisticated? The passive one, right? So another example, someone approved the budget last night. Passive voice, the budget was approved last night. It sounds more professional, more direct, and more sophisticated. So let's break it down, shall we? Passive voice is not that hard, and passive voice is everywhere. As you can see, you've already seen passive voice when you see made in China. In fact, that's a short for this product was made in China. Another one, payment approved, meaning this payment has been approved. And next, sponsored by. This race is sponsored by Nike, for example. And powered by. This smartphone is powered by Android. So those are all passive voice examples. And you see them everywhere, and they are not hard to learn. So let's move on. So the active voice would be, they delivered the goods 3 days after payment confirmation. So it's active voice, a sentence that you normally use and learn in the beginning of your English courses. So you have a subject, a verb, a complement, and the subject is the owner of the verb. Whereas the passive voice, you use the object in the beginning. So it becomes, the goods are delivered 3 days after payment confirmation. Now, how do you do that? You're gonna use, as in the example you see, we've already processed the payment. So you're gonna start with the object, the payment, use the verb to be in the same verb tense as the original sentence, in this case present perfect simple, has been, and then the main verb in the third column, the past participle of the verb, which is processed. So you have the payment has already been processed. Let's try another one. The company dismissed the CEO last month. Start with the object, which is the CEO. Use the verb to be in the verb tense of the original sentence, which in this case is simple past, so was, because it has to conjugate with CEO. So the CEO was dismissed, third column of the verb dismiss, last month. So why should you use passive voice? Because the most important thing is the object. When you talk about we, they, the company, it's too generic. Let's focus on what's more important, and that's why passive voice is very useful. Next, HR has prepared the dismissal paperwork. Again, the object, the dismissal paperwork. Verb to be in the same verb tense, has been, third column of the main verb, prepared. Do I need to include HR? No, we don't, because HR is the only department that is going to prepare the dismissal paperwork, so it's irrelevant. But if you want to use the agent, you could say by HR. But bear in mind that whatever is redundant should be omitted when you speak in English, okay? Next example, you should submit the request between 8 and 9 a.m. The request here it's the use of the modal verb should. So you use the modal verb should and the verb be. Should be, third column of submit, submitted, and copy and paste the rest of the sentence between 8 and 10 a.m. Now, on the screen, you'll be able to see that the verb to be can be used in every verb tense except the present perfect continuous. So, bear that in mind that the verb tense you're gonna use the passive voice in is gonna be the same one you would use in the active voice. So, make sure you know which form of the verb to be you're gonna use, and before you say anything, remember the verb to be can be used in present continuous. Look at the screen. It is I am or is or are being with ing. Okay, that's not weird at all. Look at the example. The manager is being audited. Okay. Now, modal verbs. Modal verbs can be used with any verb, including the verb to be. Can be, should be, may be, will be. When would you use passive voice? You use passive voice when you present a flowchart in processes. So, the request is submitted. The request is approved. The budget is analyzed. Everything should be in the passive voice to elevate your presentation. Another one, when the object is more important than the subject. So you see that a lot in headlines. So instead of saying the federal police arrested the CEO, what is more important, the CEO or the federal police? So it's the CEO for the headline. So you start with the CEO. So the CEO has been arrested. Now, is it necessary for you to use the federal police? I think not. So you just remove it. So they are very similar to headlines. And therefore, in formal communications, in presentations, you should be using passive voice instead. And finally, to have a more formal communication. And an example is the client was informed of the date of delivery. Instead of saying we informed the client of the date of delivery, you see that it sounds a little better. So that's the purpose. So if you want to elevate your English and to sound more sophisticated and professional, passive voice should be part of how you communicate. Just to check your understanding. So first of all, for passive voice, how do you use it? You use the object of the active voice plus the verb to be in the verb tense of the original sentence plus the complement. If you want to use the agent, use the preposition by. Okay? So, for example, this project was approved by the CFO. You can use the agent or not. It's gonna be up to you on what you think is more relevant or understood in that case. Now, bear in mind the verb to be can be used in all verb tenses, present continuous included, except for the present perfect continuous. In that one, you're gonna use the present perfect simple version, has been. Okay? Don't forget the third column, past participle of the verbs. So if you have irregular verbs, yes, you're gonna need to know the third column. Check our videos on how to learn irregular verbs in our playlist. It might help you, and believe me, that's very necessary for you to use passive voice. When do you use passive voice? When you are describing processes in a flow chart, when the object is more important than the subject, and when you want a more formal communication. Okay? So
In emails, should we use passive voice?
yes, especially emails, if they are more formal, yes, definitely, because emails should be a way for you to communicate in a direct manner, and that would help you so much. Try to avoid sentences like with somebody, they, we, the company, or the department, if it's irrelevant. So always choose for passive voice in that case. Shall we check your understanding with a quick quiz? Let's go. So how did you do it? If you didn't do very well, don't worry. You can go over it again and try to improve. I promise you this is something that you're gonna pick up very quickly, especially if you know the irregular verbs. But if you did well, I suggest you start using that in your presentations. Okay? Avoid using we, they, the department. Just change to passive voice and you will see that your presentations are gonna be elevated, which is the purpose of learning this passive voice here. Okay? Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. See you next time.